Well, thanks, Mel. The book is called Stealth, Kamala Harris's Communist Roots. And it's called Stealth because she is a stealth candidate.
Yeah.
Her communism is hidden. President Trump calls her a communist, but people sort of think it's a figure of speech or, her politics are a bit socialist. No, she is a hardcore pro-China Maoist communist. So the book deals with the roots of that. She was most people, if they become radicalized, it's at college. But she was radicalized in the cradle. Right. Both of her parents were Marxists. She went to a Marxist social club as a young girl. Her parents were in a group that worshipped Ho Chi Minh and Mao Zedong and Fidel Castro. So the book is about her Marxism, her Maoism, from cradle to now, and the movement that nurtured her. She's part of a movement. The Chinese have been infiltrating her system for a long time, and she's just the sort of, she's the what they want to use to break through. And we also, of course, touch on her running mate, Tim Walz, who is also a Maoist. So what we're saying, the word, when you say communist about Kamala Harris, this is not exaggeration or hyperbole. This is what she is. She is a full-on Maoist communist, 100%. Yeah, this is just all fluff. It's complete fluff. Father Don Harris was a Jamaican economist. Her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, was a breast cancer researcher from India. They met, she was from a revolutionary family in India. They met in Berkeley. Don Harris was recruited to Stanford as an affirmative action Marxist. A local Marxist group got him recruited because they didn't have enough Marxists in the economics department, so they got the best one they could. Her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, helped to put together a book called Black Marxism. That's all about the Black revolutionary movement. So she helped with that. That was her project. But they were both in an organization called the Afro-American Association. And this group was openly pro-Mao. Ho Chi Minh, the leader of communist Vietnam, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and this group founded the Black Panther movement.
Oh, wow.
The two leaders of the Black Panthers came out of this group, and most people don't realize the Black Panthers was a Maoist group, pro-Chinese communist. They worshipped North Korea, they worshipped communist China. So this is where her parents came from. And just interestingly, the leader of the Afro-American Association was called Donald Warden. He changed his name later to Khalid al-Mansour and became an emissary of a very wealthy Saudi prince. And Khalid al-Mansour was the man who organized the letter through Percy Sutton, the Manhattan borough president, who came from a Texan communist family, organized the letter that got a young Barack Obama into Harvard. So when I say this is a movement, the same people who gave us Kamala were the same people who gave us Barack, and Stacey Abrams, the so-called governor of Georgia, who thinks she's the governor of Georgia, and Andrew Gillum, who almost became the governor of Florida. So this is a big pro-Chinese movement behind her. Well, the Congressional Black Caucus, you're right about the traditionally black colleges. Kamala Harris went to Howard, which was one of those schools, and she was heavily involved with Marxist radicals during her time at Howard. Congressional Black Caucus was basically set up in partnership with the Cuban Communist Party. It's always served. And as you rightly note, they've been sending people to China for many years now. And Black Lives Matter came out of that movement and was nurtured basically by the Liberation Road communist movement, a pro-Chinese communist group, and the Chinese Progressive Association of San Francisco, which is a community group based in San Francisco that set up Asians for Black Lives, which was the guiding force for Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is a Chinese operation, just as the Black Panthers were. Black Lives Matter is really modeled on the Black Panthers, and they're both Maoist organizations. And Kamala's parents were involved in the beginnings of the Black Panthers, and Kamala Harris actively supported Black Lives Matter and is a very close friend of Elijah Gaza, one of the three founders of Black Lives Matter. Kamala Harris is the Black Lives Matter candidate. Look, that's exactly right. The Weather Underground was a spin-off of Students for a Democratic Society, which was Maoist. You know, in the 60s, the young kids all loved Mao. You know, in the 50s and the 40s, the American communists loved the Soviet Union. But the 60s kids thought that was really boring, you know. So they were into Mao Zedong and Fidel Castro. So the Weather Underground came out of that. And, you know, Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dawn, they had the Obamas to their house for meals 5 to 6 days a week for about 7 or 8 years. You know, they stopped their marriage. Bill Ayers saved their marriage because he wanted to keep the marriage intact because he was nurturing Obama as a Maoist president. You know, so the Black Panthers, the Weather Underground, this is the movement that began what Kamala Harris comes out of. And also the other factor there is Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition of the 1980s. That came out of the Black Panthers, was supported by Maoist communists, and gave us both Kamala Harris and Barack Obama. So this continuous Maoist pattern going right back into the 60s of these pro-Chinese communists, they gave us both Kamala and Barack Obama. Well, exactly. You know, Josh Shapiro would have logically been a better candidate because he was regarded as more moderate, and Pennsylvania is such a key swing state,
right? Critical
state. But the selection panel that chose Waltz included Eric Holder, but also Tony West, who was Kamala Harris's brother-in-law. He was given a job. Well, I can go into that later, but he's a hardcore leftist. So Waltz was chosen because he comes out of the Minnesota franchise of the Maoist movement. You know,
yeah.
Barack Obama was in the Chicago franchise. Kamala's in the Bay Area franchise. Waltz was in the Minnesota franchise. So he has worked with the Chinese for 30 years, plus he has worked with the Minnesota Communist Party, plus with the radical group that was set up in the wake of the death of Senator Paul Wellstone, who was a Marxist, the sort of Bernie Sanders before there was a Bernie Sanders.
Right.
But Waltz's connections to the Chinese are horrific and ongoing, deep. You know, he was taking large groups of young kids to China where they were to basically indoctrinate them in Maoism, funded by the Chinese government. These kids were told not to emphasize their Americanness. He was buying up copies of Mao's Little Red Book. He taught at a Chinese university. And critically, when President Trump was trying to cut economic ties to China during his term of office, Waltz was pushing in the opposite direction, using the agricultural trade of Minnesota, the soybean trade, etc., to push for increased ties to China.
Yeah.
You know, Waltz, so much more, but Waltz could not pass a background check to drive a school bus.
Yeah.
He couldn't have even he shouldn't have even been allowed to be a high school teacher, let alone serve in the National Guard and the Armed Services Committee in the House of Representatives. Well, see, one of the key Maoists involved in the Rainbow Coalition was a Stanford University black law student named Steve Phillips. And he was involved with the League of Revolutionary Struggle, a Maoist communist group. And he was very actively involved with Maya Harris. She was at Stanford with him. They were involved in the same radical circles. But Steve Phillips married into one of the richest families in America, the Herb and Marion Sandler. He married their daughter.
Wow.
You know, Golden West Savings and Loan fortune.
Right.
And the Golden West Savings and Loan fortune, they sold that to Wachovia Bank. They got a $2 billion profit, and they put $1.3 billion of it into the progressive movement. They set up the Center for American Progress. That was their money. They set up ProPublica. That was their money. Oh, wow. They worked with with George Soros and others to set up the Democracy Alliance, which is this big alliance of left-wing billionaires.
Right.
But Steve Phillips, he also had a group called Power Pack. Stacey Abrams served on the board of that, and Andrew Gillum served on the board of that, and he is the sugar daddy of Kamala Harris. Wow. He knew the Harris family. He got her elected to the DA from San Francisco, Attorney General from California, Senate for California, and now he's backing her with all of his money. He got her on the ticket. Now he's backing her to become the first Maoist president of the United States, working with the big money. Yeah. So Kamala Harris is in both camps. She's got the street level Maoists working the voter registration organizations, the electoral groups, the Chinese Progressive Association, Liberation Road, the street level communists. But a lot of these communists from the 90s went into big business. They went into the judiciary. They went into the non-profits, and they are telling the wealthy leftists where to put their money. Steve Phillips is telling George Soros where to put his money. So there's a real strategy there to use the Black and Latino communities, the minority communities, the college kids, to rerun the Rainbow Coalition, all the minorities together with the progressive whites, to install Kamala Harris to finish the job. Yeah. So absolutely, this is Maoism at every level, right up to some of the richest people in America and the leading lights of the Democratic Party, like Podesta and others. Well, the whole Me Too campaign has a political dimension to it, which is basically to mainly go after conservatives. They'll go after some leftists. They got to maintain the facade, But look, Doug Emhoff, as you say, his law firm it had actual Chinese Communist Party members on the staff, not just linked. This is a heavily pro-China law firm, but he's also an entertainment lawyer, which gets him heavily involved in Hollywood. And so, I'll give an example of how this works. Like when Deb Haaland, who's now the Secretary of the Interior, was put into that job, that was organized by Judith LeBlanc of the Communist Party USA. And she got a whole bunch of Hollywood endorsements for that. She got Alyssa Milano and Sarah Silverman and Hannah Jane Fonda and Mark Ruffalo and all of these stars. So you've got this left-wing grouping in Hollywood. They're rich as all get out, but they just love supporting leftists. Maybe it assuages their conscience. I don't know what it does, but many of them come from left-wing backgrounds. So Kamala's in that circle too. Right. The Hollywood, well, who's just come out and George Clooney and people like this, they'll support her. So the famous Soviet spy, Whittaker Chambers, who became a Christian, a conservative, he used to joke, he said when he was a communist, the working class people all voted Democrat. The middle class all voted Republican. The elites were all communists. You're right. And he wasn't really joking. That was his experience inside the communist movement. Well, see, this is the thing. You got the Bill Gateses of the world, the Obamas. This inclusive communism is more what we would call crony capitalism. This is a Chinese model where you have a strong communist party, but business is allowed as long as it serves the interest of the party. Now, in America in the 80s, the Maoists were told by China to go into the institutions of America, to become Congress members, to become business people, to become lawyers and Supreme Court justices and all this kind of thing. So what the Obamas and all these people want is a vision of a socialist America where a very small clique controls everything, but for a time at least there will be business. There will still be business as long as it's business that serves the interest, as long as it's about the Green New Deal. Right. It won't be the mom and pop business. It will be the corporate socialists, the Bill Gateses, the big tech guys. They will have a place at the table for a short time. But it'll only be for a short time, because the actual Chinese goal And these people are working for China. They think they're going to get a place at the table. But I'm telling you, when China makes its move against this country hardcore, they're going to wipe these people out, and most of the other people here. The Chinese goal is ultimately to eliminate America and occupy our country. They need to. They've got 1.4 billion people on very little agricultural land, an economy that's about to collapse.
Right.
They openly write they need America. So they're using these American traitors as puppets, including American, Wall Street guys who will, as long as they're making money out of China, they'll keep electing Democrats, they'll keep electing socialists. But that gravy train's going to come to an end. But the problem is, I don't mind those people getting lined up against the wall. They deserve it, but they drag us down with it. That's the problem. Well, look, John Kerry, AOC, Kamala have all been talking openly about ending the First Amendment.
Right.
And look, for those people who say, look, if we lose this election, we're all going to come back in 2028, we're so strong. Think about this. Kamala Harris is going to legalize and give citizenship and voting rights to 30 million illegal immigrants who will then vote 95% for her party. She is going to pack the Supreme Court, so you can't appeal to the Supreme Court. She's going to end the Electoral College, so it's mass popular vote only, which is almost always won by the Democrats. She's going to use the judiciary to come after her enemies way more than she ever has. Right. If you look at how arrogant Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been for the last 4 years, when they still had to face a realistic election and they still had to deal with the Supreme Court, which was leaning conservative, you imagine what they'd be like with a packed Supreme Court, the end of the Electoral College, and 30 million illegal immigrants in their pocket. Do you think they're ever going to let us come back?
And not just that,
we are 3 weeks away from a Maoist revolution if we do not do this right. Look, 100% right. We got to understand this is a communist revolution, and they are going to use illegal immigration to seal the deal. And the surveillance state now is being kept a little bit in check because we still have a Supreme Court, we still have a conservative opposition, but it's going to come down hard on people. They just gave Tina Peters, the former Secretary of State of Colorado, who exposed election fraud, they just gave her 9 years in the slammer. 9 years for doing her job because she was fighting their agenda. So this is why they're doing the Christian nationalist thing. The biggest threat to American security is Christian nationalist. That means a Christian who believes in the Bible, who believes in borders, and believes in the American Constitution. That's now a threat. Conservative Catholics, they're a threat. Not Black Lives Matter, not Hamas, not the 100,000 people from China and Russia and Iran that have come across the border. They're not the problem. American patriots are now the problem. And you can bet your bottom dollar, if they win this election, they're going to come down hard, very, very hard. They do not ever want another challenge to their power after this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a one-party state if this election goes badly.
Yeah.
Well, there was a speech given in 2016 in Renmin University by a top Chinese professor, and he talked about the stages of taking over America. And he said, we have to get inside America and we have to have them inside us so they can never fight us. Meaning we have to have our economies completely integrated so there's such a constituency in America that we can never push back. There's so many Wall Street people making money, so many academics are compromised, so many universities getting money, so many Republican and Democrat governors who are compromised. And just by the way, it wasn't Dianne Feinstein's driver, it was her office manager. He was a hardcore communist, and connected to people around Kamala Harris, by the way.
Yeah.
But the other thing is all this land buying, that serves several purposes. A, they want the farmland for their future use. But when they buy farmland or set up factories in America, that creates a constituency in each congressional district where you have businesses contracting to these companies and hold towns become dependent on them. So the congressman from that area can never stand against China because so many of his people's jobs depend on the Chinese. This is why they put their battery factories and their big plants, because that means a whole congressional district now is not going to oppose China. The same guy said we need organizations in every congressional district in America so that we can make the American Congress an appendage of the Chinese government. This was explicitly what he said. So when bringing the Chinese into your state or your communities, like bringing in the mafia.
Right.
You know, they're going to sell drugs to your kids. They're going to steal your stuff. They're going to buy up your politicians, and they're going to pillage your community. It's wrong. And President Trump was trying to decouple us from China, which is why China mounted a massive COVID attack, a massive Black Lives Matter attack, and had a whole network of voter registration organizations in the key swing states to make sure Biden-Harris got elected. And they're still working out there, these Chinese-backed organizations for Biden-Waltz right now. The Chinese have massive influence in this country that most people don't fully understand. That's in many states. And so the drug legalization thing is also being heavily pushed by the Chinese so they can get into the market. And the Maoists, the people around Andrew Gillum are just trying to get this done in Florida, not so people can smoke. You know, the new law in Florida, people don't understand. You can't grow it at home. You've got to buy it off the cartel, which will be working with the Chinese. So that it's like their fentanyl. You know, in China, they execute drug dealers because they don't want drugs in China because they're getting ready for war. But they give tax incentives to the companies that produce the precursors to fentanyl, which they then ship through the Mexican cartels to kill our kids.
Right.
No, so they're at war with us economically, financially, politically, every possible way you can. But the trick is they've used their money to buy so much influence in our system that we have now a lot of business people and academics and politicians who don't want to stop the gravy train. Yeah. That's the problem. And Trump was upsetting that, which is why they had to get rid of him. They explicitly said, if we don't stop Trump, he's going to shut down the CCP. He's going to destroy the Communist Party of China. And he would have done that. And what a boon to the world, a free China. Imagine a free China. What a great boon to the world that would have been. Americans will only understand tyranny in its fullest when it's too late to stop it. Right. You know, I read the leftist stuff. They are actually freaking out. They think they could well lose this election. They really do. This is why you get assassination attempts. This is why you get the desperation. So Americans need to understand we can win this thing. We can take this country back, but not with complacency, because this is what I'm saying. If Kamala Harris takes over, both her and Waltz are Maoist communists. They have China's interest at heart. So she will legalize 30 million illegals. She will induct many of them into the US military, thousands, hundreds of thousands into the US military. Like a guy from Kansas isn't going to shoot someone from Oklahoma, but a guy from Iran or a guy from Chechnya in the US military won't have that problem. Right. They are going to clamp down on freedom of speech like you've never seen. They're going to stop the Supreme Court. They're going to do everything a communist would do to centralize power and shut out our freedom of speech and go after their enemies. If you think we can just sit it out and come back in 4 years with some great conservative candidate and stop this, you are dreaming. This is the chance. We have a real chance of defeating Kamala Harris and Tim Waltz, especially if enough people understand how communist she is. We've got a real chance of doing it. And if we don't, we will live in shame and never be able to look our kids in the eye again, because we will lose America and many of us will lose our lives. I cannot exaggerate enough. I cannot emphasize enough how important this election is.
Right.
when it is so possible to stop it. Look, it's the book is Stealth: Kamala Harris's Communist Roots. You can go to Amazon right now, order multiple copies if you want. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my website, trevorloudon.com. That will take a couple of days more. You can get an Amazon copy tomorrow or the day after. Go there right now. And look, it's selling in Australia, it's selling in Canada, it's selling in Britain, because everybody around the world understands this is bad for everybody if that communist wins this election. So, just Amazon, make Jeff Bezos a little bit richer, but help people. And look, get out there, put this on Facebook, put it on Twitter, just get it out there. The more Americans who understand that puts them on the back foot, makes them have to defend themselves, and it makes the base who more urgent, just more urgent. We've got to be as urgent as we possibly can coming up. Oh, look, appreciate it so much, Mel, and thanks to all the audience, and just thanks for the opportunity, and congratulations on your new book too.
Thank you, sir.